Year one. I don't know. I mean, I literally don't know. I have no memory. The first memory I have happens at year two. 1976, Boston. Memory I have are men dressed as soldiers walking through a hay. I remember being very excited about it. I remember jumping up and down. But the memory is so half-formed and primordial that I can't reify it in my middle age. Year three. There was a garden in the back of our house, which was in San Jose, California. It was painted pink. That was where my father theoretically grew crops. He's dead now. I didn't talk to him during the last 20 years of my life. The terrible memory of opening a shed and realizing that my father was an alcoholic. The stench of that beer. Bottles accumulate, and the whiff so strong. Someone had gone to some length to hide those bottles from my precious 3-year-old eye. But I do remember that smell. Maybe that was year 4 or year 5. See, in the early years of life, all the years congeal together. Year 4. At this point, I know how to read. I learned how to read when I was 2. And it isn't too long before I'm hitting kindergarten in year 5. And I recall the kindergarten teacher asking me to tell my story, dictating the words. I could read all the words. She didn't know that. So I started copy editing her at the age of 5. Or was it 4? First dispute with my copy. I would fight for my copy many years later when I was writing professionally. At the ages of 4 and 5, I started to feel these deep, heartfelt feelings for other people. Being surrounded by people, by schoolmates, by teachers, I felt harder than most people. I was shy, nervous. I pronounced rabbit as wabbit. I had a couple of other flubs that still exist to the present day, but I'm fine with them now. But I did see a speech therapist. Year 6, I recall taking a couple of tests. Oh shit, this kid's smart. At one point, I take an IQ test, and my IQ is in the genius range. I'm not going to tell you the number, because it always makes me feel weird whenever anyone calls me a genius. And this was the beginning of many sensitive men who were usually in their 30s who had modeled their life and the way they talked after Alan Alda. Believe it or not, MASH had made him a sex symbol in the 1970s. Anyway, I was nurtured in soft-spoken, dulcet tone. Years 7, years 8. Witness a boy who had a soprano range, who was later to sing the HMS Pinafore in front of the entire school assembly, who had a kindly music teacher that started showing him the ropes. When I started to sing, I started feeling more emotionally sensitive. I remember harboring a crush on an older girl named Kirsten. I remember a very lovely man that my mother had dated between husbands. I was so distraught with my feelings that I got on the phone with him at a late hour. He was in New York because it was a long-distance relationship, so he was 3 hours ahead, talking to a confused kid around maybe 9 or 10 p.m. Pacific time. This man, whose name I'm not going to name, was meant to be my real father. See, my first father beat the shit out of me. My second father beat the shit out of me and did all sorts of crazy mind games. I mean, hell, they both did. So I didn't trust too many men by the time my mother married a third guy who was docile and controlling, and at that point, my mother was a full-fledged narcissist. But this guy, who I've actually been in contact with in the intervening year, I remember that conversation. I remember how distraught I felt. Didn't understand what this was. Infatuation was such a heavy burden, and he talked me through. It suggested that I give her some chocolates. And then my mother went to Lucky's to do the weekly grocery shopping, and she bought this box of After 8 dinner mints. Not exactly chocolate, but you know, it did the trick. I gave Kirsten, this elementary school crush, the box of chocolates, and I remember one of my greatest childhood memories was sitting on the back of the school bus with Kirsten. The two of us eating those chocolates. The two of us looking into each other's eyes. The two of us moving in for a kiss. Very, very light. But it worked. And I was on heaven. I'll always remember that moment. My first kiss. And the feelings I felt were